Oh yeah, it's gonna be just perfect. What are you guys doing in here? You can't have a camera in here. I was told I couldn't take pictures in here. They don't know what I'm about to do though. Let me show you guys. Look what my daughter did, huh? How about that? Isn't that beautiful? It was hanging on the fridge at home. Nah, it needs to be in some place where the world can appreciate it. So I am going to put this painting right here on the wall, and you, since you need a word, and I need you to kind of get out of here, you are going to go find out what the word put or place is in Latin and Greek and see if you can get any English words from it. Oh yeah, that's going to be perfect. It's WordUp, the vocab show, starring Dwane Thomas. WordUp teaches you the Latin and Greek roots of countless English words. Use them to amaze your friends and family members. Now sit back and enjoy the show. Guy's got an overinflated view of his kid's ability to produce art. That was not art. You've studied art, right? No, it wasn't. I'll tell you where I'd put that. I know where exactly. Well, hey, welcome to WordUp, the vocab show. We've got a great show for you today. We're talking about put or place. You may not know this, but the Romans and the Greeks, they put things in places and they placed things where they put them. Let's go right now to the Latin guy and find out what the Roman word is for put or place and if we get any English words at all from it. Hey guys, today we're looking at the Latin verb ponere, which means to put or place. Its past participle is positum, which means placed, as in the past, like I placed something on the table. You get it enough grammar, let's jump into it. The first English word we get from ponere positum is posit. To posit something is to put something forth for consideration. So I am going to posit 14 words, maybe 15 actually. I'm supposed to only give you guys 10. But if they're not going to pay attention, I'm going to posit 14 words for you guys to learn today. So I'm going to have to run through these. Pay attention. Here we go. The first one, posit. We already talked about that. An example of posit, Augustine posited various worldviews in The City of God, his famous book. The City of God is the heavenly worldview, and the City of Man is the earthly worldview. Component. A component is something cum, which means with, and ponere, which means put or place, something put together. And actually, a component is usually part of a machine. If I ripped my computer apart here in front of you, I could show you all of the components. I could then sell you each of the components online because I wouldn't be able to put it back together because I don't know how to do that kind of stuff. Compose is from the Latin words cum, which means with, and positum, which means put together, just like component, something's put together. Only this time, when you compose, you're writing. You might compose an essay for your teacher or compose a poem for someone you're in love with. Interestingly enough, you can even compose yourself. So you compose a poem for someone you're in love with, you give it to her, she reads it and laughs, you run back to your house and cry for a little while, but then you compose yourself and you write another poem and it's better. And she falls in love with you. It's beautiful. Composers, famous composers, Beethoven and Mozart, what did they do? They were writing, they wrote music, they wrote symphonies, they composed these things. What are they doing these days? They're decomposing. The next word is composition. Whatever you wrote, that essay for your teacher or that poem for the person you were in love with, those musical pieces that Beethoven and Mozart wrote, those were compositions. Those were the things that were composed. Composition can also refer to what something is made of. For instance, the moon. What is its composition? What is it made of? Is it stone, sand, cheese? Personally, I think it's cheese because why else would we send manned missions to the moon if it weren't for the hope that it was just a great big hunk of free cheese floating out there? The next word is depose. To depose is to put down forcefully. The de part of this word in Latin means down from or away from. So, for example, in the French Revolution, the people of France deposed their king. In law, to depose is to bear witness. In modeling, to depose or depose is deposition that you strike when the photographer takes the picture with the camera enough of this dumb nonsense. The next word is deposition. A deposition is a written testimony. So let's say that the judge needs you in court, the lawyer needs you in court, but because of the nature of the case, your life is in danger if you show up. They might just require a deposition and use your written testimony instead of your physical testimony. Exponent. An exponent is a number to a power. So look at the number 2 here. We have 2 to the 4th power. That 4 at the top right-hand corner is an exponent. That means that you are to multiply 2 times itself 4 times, which ends up equaling 16. An exponent can also be someone who supports something. For example, I personally am an exponent of math in school. All math in school, actually. None of it coming home for homework because I'm not so great at math, which reminds me, my son had 20 problems in math class today, and he finished 7 of them at school, which leaves some more for us to do at home tonight. The next word is expound. To expound is to explain something difficult. I'm not going to expound math to you because you don't want me doing that. Noah Webster in 1828 expounded the English language to the American people, and he did it on purpose. He said the English have their own dictionaries in England, but the languages are shifting. So the Americans need their own dictionary, and he expounded the language to them in English. Expound. Ex, out of, and ponere, to put. So he put the language out there for them in a way that they could clearly understand. By the way, when he did that, his dictionary, that was his exposition of the English language. The exposition is the actual explaining of something difficult. It's the noun form of that explanation. So the dictionary was the exposition. The scriptures are sometimes hard to understand. So you might go read a commentary about certain sections so that you can understand what's being said. That commentary is an exposition. Spurgeon, a pastor in England in the 1800s, he wrote commentaries or expositions on the Bible. Calvin wrote expositions on the Bible. To impose comes from the Latin word in, which means in or on, and pose, which means to put or place, from positum. To impose something on someone is to put something on someone. For example, every year the government imposes taxes on its people, which kind of depresses me, but it's sort of encouraging too, because according to the government, we have what it takes, which is slightly encouraging in a weird, bad way. Those taxes themselves are an imposition. They're a burden. They're a demand. That's our next word, imposition. An imposition is something placed on you that you don't want. For instance, the other day, this lady asked me to watch her 5 kids, and it was kind of an imposition. I was getting ready for this episode, and she asked me to watch these 5 kids, and really, it was quite an imposition until I realized, oh yeah, that's my wife, and those are my kids. So I sent them to bed because I look so peaceful when my kids are asleep. The next word is imposter. If you go to school tomorrow and you realize that the principal isn't there, you may be tempted to become an imposter. If you can just sneak into the school office, grab the intercom system, you can pretend to be the principal and you can dismiss school for the rest of the day. You're not going to get away with it though. They'll bust you. You are an imposter. An imposter is someone who puts Positum, himself, in the place of someone else. Can't do that. Juxtaposition. Juxta in Latin means near. So something that is juxtaposed is put near something else that is juxtaposed. They're both put next to each other and they're now in juxtaposition. For example, the colors of the rainbow are juxtaposed. Which reminds me, in Genesis, God says he'll never send a worldwide flood again. But if you read in Hebrew, and if you look closely, you'll see that he says next time he'll send fast food to punish the world, which I have to say, whoever snuck the S in fast food, that was tricky. Nicely done. The next word is proposition. Proposition is a statement put forth for consideration. So, for example, ladies, somebody may come up to you, some boy may come up to you and say, how about we get married? That is a proposition. He just proposed to you. He put forth something for you to consider. You don't have to say yes. And if you said it like that, how about we get married? You probably wouldn't say, yes, that's a bad proposition or a bad proposal. Too many words. I could go on. Proposition is also a statement in logic that needs to be proved. Famous proposition from history, Descartes' proposition, cogito ergo sum, I think, therefore I am. Less well known, the proposition by a la carte, cogito ego sum, I think I'm a waffle. Guys, I've loaded you up on Ponere, Positum words, and it's time for me to get out of here. As a matter of fact, I gave you too many, and I'm probably going to get busted for it. So I'm going to send you back to my friend at the desk. Hey, honey, can you bring in that picture that one of the kids painted last week? The one on the fridge. I want to show these guys what real art looks like. Yeah, that's right. Thanks. Hang on. Guys, thank you for that. Extra words, we're not putting anything extra in your in your paycheck for those extra words. Let's go see what the Greek guy has to say about putting or placing. You still there? Okay. It's right on the fridge. Guys, the Greek word thesis means put, something placed, something positioned. Comes from the Greek word tithemi, which means I put or place. And from it we get a bunch of English words. Here we go. Let's look at them. The first one is thesis. You've heard of this one before. You've written reports for school, and at the top of your report or somewhere at the beginning of your report, you've written a thesis statement. This is the idea that you're putting forth. This is the idea that you're putting out there, your premise, your proposition. This is what you want people to believe. So you're writing a report for Mrs. Liebovich, and you tell her you want her to believe that it wasn't the Egyptians that built pyramids, it was aliens that built pyramids. That's your thesis statement, which of course everyone knows is ridiculous. They're actually giant inflatables. Antithesis comes from the Greek word ante, which means against, and thesis, which means put or placed. An antithesis is something put on the other side. It's a polar opposite. Light is the darkness. Light is the antithesis of darkness. The yin is the antithesis of the yang. Congress is the antithesis of progress. The next word is epithet. An epithet is a name or a descriptive adjective given to someone or something. For instance, Richard the Lionhearted. Lionhearted is an epithet. Ivan the Terrible. Terrible is an epithet. Dora the Explorer. The Explorer is an epithet. It's a good thing they didn't name her Dora the Internet Explorer. She would have never gotten anywhere. She would have crashed before getting there. Careful with epithets. They can also be racial and negative slurs, so be careful with those. The next word is hypothesis. The hypo in this word comes from the Greek word meaning below. A hypothesis is something put below. It's a guess. So Sherlock walks into a crime scene and he sees everything in the room. He'll put pieces together, thesis, and then he'll create a hypothesis. Here's my guess about what happened. That's the hypothesis. Then he'll begin to assemble the facts until he can come up with a workable theory. Now it's not so much a guess anymore. That hypothesis got him started. He put that below, built on top of it, created the theory, and then once he knows for sure who the murderer was or who the perpetrator was, then he's got the facts. He takes it to the police and says, here's the report, here's my investigation, that guy did it. The next word is parenthesis. Para in Greek means beside. A parenthesis is something usually that we stick in a sentence. It's beside the main sentence or inside the main sentence. You've seen them in those curved lines, parenthetical phrases, parenthetical expressions. You've seen them stuck in the sentence, and that part of the parenthetical phrase or expression that's in the sentence is actually there to explain the main sentence. So it's put beside the main sentence to explain the main sentence. Synthesis, syn in this word, in Greek means together. So synthesis is something put together. So it's like Legos, you sit down and you synthesize them. Kind of. Synthesis can be used in a bunch of different ways. For instance, if you are writing that report for your teacher about the Egyptians, you're synthesizing your ideas. All of your ideas coming together, that's a synthesis. You can use it in logic when you combine arguments. That's synthesis. You can even use it in surgery. When you combine divided body parts, that's synthesis. It can be used in chemistry. When you combine compounds to create new compounds, that's synthesis. Synthetic is an adjective that we use to describe something created by synthesis. So we were just talking about chemical compounds, remember that? We combine them, we put them together, synthesis, and we create a new compound. That compound is synthetic. It's a synthetic creation that we've made. For instance, you go to a sports arena. That grass on the ground, if it's an indoor sports arena, that may not be real grass. It actually may be synthetic grass. It's created in a chemical plant somewhere and then put out there so the athletes can run around on it, but yet they don't have to water it and mow it and clip it and haul off the clippings, etc. All that stuff that you have to do every Saturday because your dad tells you to, and you're not old enough yet to say, I don't want to do this. Or maybe you're just smart enough not to say that. The next word is photosynthesis. Plants generate food for themselves by synthesizing, there's that word again, by joining compounds, and then they use these compounds to create carbohydrates, which for them is food. They get the energy for this synthesis from the sun, from sunlight. Phos in Greek means light. Photosynthesis, combining chemicals together to create food using light. I'm gonna figure out how to do this and put pizza boxes out in the front yard, let them sit in the sun for a while. Bam, pizza. Guys, the next word is polythetic, a word that honestly you may not see that often, but when it does show up, you'll wanna know what it means. Poly means many in Greek. So polythetic, many things put together. And when you put these things together, it becomes a polythetic group. For example, there's a polythetic group in the world that I'm thinking of right now. People that look like me. That may be good, that may be bad. Maybe you're thinking, I'm glad I'm not part of that group. Well, anyway, there are 5 people in the world who are in this polythetic group. They're my kids. They kind of look like me. They are about the same height. They have fair hair, blue eyes, pointy noses. They have teeth. But if we remove one of those characteristics, or let's say that one of my kids doesn't have one of those characteristics. So let's say that one of my kids doesn't have a long pointy nose. They've got a short, stubby, cute nose. They still look like me, right? They're still part of the polythetic group, because in a polythetic group, none of the characteristics are the defining characteristic. And the last word is prosthesis. A prosthesis, pros in Greek means for, or in the place of, and thesis means put. A prosthetic limb or a prosthesis is usually an artificial limb that replaces one that is lost, and it's called a prosthetic limb. For example, if for some reason my arm was cut off, I could actually replace my arm these days with a prosthetic limb, and they probably could give me one that even works. I could pick things up and move stuff around with it. It would be put, thesis, in the place, pros, of my old arm. You see, pirates in movies all the time, they have prosthetic limbs. They'll have a missing leg and it's been replaced with a wooden leg. That's a prosthetic limb. There you go, guys. You're 10 words smarter than you were 10 minutes ago. Go use them. Polythetic, that's an interesting new word. Well, let me show you what my kids can do, huh? Oh yeah, this is what we had hanging on our refrigerator. We have a very large refrigerator. I'm proud of her. Finger paints and crayons. Saturday morning. Look what she did. This, my friends, is what belongs on the wall in that art museum.